We've now reached the health corner of the Daily Roundup, and Eke Ndi Yandja charity organization was established to give back to the community with the primary focus of the marginalized and disadvantaged communities in Namibia. Now, their focus thus far has been renovating spaces to make them more conducive, and so that more communities that utilize these spaces can actually have a sense of dignity and are able to thrive. Now, joining us in studio is the co-founder of the charity, that is Bianca Mungunda. Bianca, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, John. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. You know, it's quite an interesting, charity that you actually founded here. You did tell me before we just went live that you actually hosted it since 2021. Yeah. Could you just take us through, what the charity is actually all about here?
Okay, so we're still a baby organization. Like I said, we established in 2021. Yeah. So what we aim to do at Eke Ndi Yandja is I would like to describe it in terms of it's threefold essentially. So number one, we try to produce conducive living environments physically, so spaces where people can thrive in, spaces where they want to essentially exist in. The second part of what we do is safe spaces in terms of communication or in terms of conversations that we'd like to have. And then the third one is essentially just trying to be a middleman between the community that is in need of help and the community that wants to give. So that's a roundup of what we essentially do at Eke Ndi Yandja.
Oh, interesting one. And what brought up the idea of renovating houses, especially one at the state hospitals here?
So just to take you back to 2021 when we started, my partner, he's really the brains behind why we started. He had a desire to give back to the community, specifically children stationed at the Katudra Hospital. I'm sure we all know the state that it is in, and I just happen to know a bit more of the conditions that is there for the children at the Katudra Hospital. So that was our first project. We fixed or renovated the Katudra Hospital School that's stationed there on the 7th floor, I believe. Right. And then after that, we realized we absolutely love doing this, and that's how our second project was birthed up to what we're now running on our 6th project now. So that's how we got to start.
Interesting. If you ask me, renovating houses is quite not a cheap exercise. Talk to us about, where the funds come from for you to be able to practice this exercise here.
Yeah. So as much as it's two people that are the face of Eke Ndi Yandja, we'd like to really believe or say that we are a community initiative. So we really heavily rely on the community for help. Our first project, we had people from our parents to picking from our own pockets to really the entire community willing to help. So what we do is we reach out via proposals, via videos that we just like to share all across social media, and you'll be so surprised how many Namibians are so receptive of it, are ready to help. So we're really reliant heavily on the public at this stage.
You mentioned just how people were receptive about it. Just maybe expand a bit more on how, especially the ones that are kind of utilizing these spaces. What are they, what response are they giving you, and how does that make you feel? Yeah.
So with our first project, that one was at the Katudra Hospital School. So those are kids who are battling any type of illness, and they have to stay at the hospital for certain weeks or even up to months. So imagine turning a dull space, a space where it's perhaps tables are falling off or whatever, into an environment of color, giving them toys, because what we do with our handovers, we also give them toys and stuff to just look forward to. So much joy on their faces, and that's what makes these things even more, I guess, more rewarding to do. Our second project was the cancer ward, where we fixed the television room there. So we also brought color, because imagine a child battling cancer. Your day-to-day, your reality is chemotherapy, you're in pain. And so we felt, hey, how about we give them an environment where when they walk in, they have a moment's distraction from that pain. So really their reception is absolute joy. It's the ability to know that their space is much more beautiful, it's much more conducive, and they're happier to be there even though they're in a hospital. So it's an honor.
And how imperative is it, that normal Namibians join hands, with the governments and institutions to bring change to the communities they live in?
I believe it's so important. That's what we stand by at Eke Ndi Yandja. We believe that we as a community or as a people, we're only as good as our brother or our sister. So we as opposed to trying to wait for the government or your leaders or someone else to do it, how about you look at yourself and see, okay, how can you create safe spaces or conducive environments for your brother, for your sister, for your next person? Because there's only so much that our leaders or our government can do, right? So we as people on the ground, we can really reach places where other people can't. So I think it's so important, and that's hopefully the message that is spread across there, that it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you have to do physical spaces or things like we do at Eke. Some people love to help by just, you know, doing charity drives or just sharing our page or just giving money, and that's their way of helping. But as long as we really pull together and realize that we can do it, we don't have to wait for anyone else.
And do you perhaps have any, you know, outside assistance that you get which actually help you, you know, carry out the practice that you're actually doing right now?
Really, it's like I said, it's really a community funded initiative, so we really rely heavily on the public, and it's been incredible to witness how our public stretches beyond the borders. We've had help on our latest project, which was fixing the neonatal unit. We've had help from the UK, the US. So right now, for our second project, there were corporates that did come on board, and so we hope in future we can just expand and do even greater things.
And speaking of the future, what other plans do you have for the future? Do you have perhaps any specific buildings that you're targeting that you maybe are, you know, planning to renovate? Any specific hospitals, perhaps?
So what we do at Eke Ndi Yandja is not just focus on health spaces, right, or hospitals. It just happened that our first two or three now pulled us towards those spaces. We just love to help wherever there's a need, right? And in terms of our mandate of creating physically beautiful spaces. So our goals are big. Hey, we want to go as big as possible, have more Namibians on board, because like I said, it's not just our project, it's community. So even expanding across the borders, reaching every corner of Namibia, going to the north, going to the south, wherever the need is, we would love to stretch our hands as far as possible.
And I'm sure there's a Namibian who's watching from home right now who probably might be inspired or, you know, wants to, you know, also be part of this. Perhaps, or maybe just in any assistance rather. How can they do that if there's any Namibian who want to, you know, support, you know, Eke Ndi Yandja? Okay.
So how they can do it at this stage, like I said, we're very open to help and collaboration. So right now they are more than welcome to contact us and follow us on our social medias. We are Eke Ndi Yandja on Instagram, on Facebook, and LinkedIn. Our email address is also ekendiyandja at gmail.com. So, and we're fairly easy to contact. So, an open book system essentially. Once they can send us a DM or go crazy, and we have a collaboration.
Bianca, thank you so much for making the time. We're actually doing quite a very interesting and very, very nice job. Keep it up, please. We wish to have you again to just know about more successes that you're actually carrying up from Eke Ndi Yandja. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That was Bianca Mungunda, who is the co-founder of the charity organization known as Eke Ndi Yandja, which is actually out there trying to renovate spaces that are actually for the help, the ones in need. And she also just mentioned that for those who want to give a helping hand to them, they can actually reach them out on Instagram, LinkedIn, as well as Facebook on Eke Ndi Yandja. That's their handle, and of course you can find their contact details there and their email address, so you can also reach out and help the ones that are in need. And also that brings us now to the end of Daily Roundup. From myself, Johnny Konja, and the rest of the team, thank you so much. Goodbye.